The Azura took the last step off the gangplank and onto firm ground. Looking around, he saw the famous lighthouse to his left, with its winding side ramp going all the way to the top. He had heard about the lighthouse before and made a mental note to make a visit of the famous site once he got settled in. When he was on the airship, he had held his hat in his hand for fear of it being swept away by the rushing air. Now he stood on the dirt path looking at it. A big moa feather was pinned to the side of it, and he ran his fingers through it to straighten it out. Happy with the result, he placed the hat on his head, making sure that his ears were comfortable under the brim, and started to walk down the path to his left. He had heard of Lion's Arch before, but this was the first time that he had been here, and it was kind of weird that it was the first time in the city, since he was a pirate and knew Lion's Arch had been built by pirates. But the Azura's pirating days had finished. He was tired of it all. He needed something different. He was known as Captain Daviez, and he came from a completely different world. A world where fighting against others in strange battle arenas was your main activity, where special abilities were the tools of the trade, and where you actually felt like a god. Now he just wanted a normal life. In the distance, he could see the walls of the city, walls that he had never seen before. Stone structures with ships' hulls embedded in them turned, no doubt, into homes for some of the locals. Daviez kept his stride as he took in the scenery. The bay to his left, where old Lion's Arch rested somewhere under the water. The mountainside to his right with a massive cave mouth and people coming in and out of it. He wondered if there was something interesting in the cave for people to adventure into its darkness, and made his second mental note of the location to go exploring. Finally, he made it to the city. The plaza spread out before him with its makeshift tent of sails giving some protection from the sun. Some people were talking to a man near the entrance to the plaza, and Daviez thought he heard him say, "It's simple, just run with it in your hands and don't get squashed." The man then burst out in a laughter that had a mischievous ring to it. Humans, Norns, Sylvari, Chars and Azuras could be seen all over the place. Daviez was marvelled at how, with so much differences between each race, that there wasn't a full-fledged riot here, right now. He guessed that security was pretty tight in LA. He now stood at what looked like the center of the city. Behind him was the plaza. Further behind was the entrance to where the Azura gates stood. To his right, what looked like to be a stone octopus housed some sort of facility. A lot of people were talking to some sort of attendant, but from all the babble that came from there, one phrase could be heard above the rest. Less violence, more violence. From the sound of the voice, Daviez assumed that it had to be a Sylvari. Their voices seemed to have a sweet and harmonious sound to them. A few seconds later, the same voice repeated the same phrase, and a few seconds later, the same thing. Yeah, that can get really old really fast, thought Daviez to himself. Daviez just stood there. Everything was amazing to his eyes. There was a zone nearly in front of him with forges and workstations, and he assumed that would be where to go if you wanted to craft something. A little to his left-hand side, another small building housed some sort of auction house from what he could see from this distance. And next to the octopus building was a giant swirl of light. It rose up into the air to fall down on itself and looked like it was being sucked into the center of the pit. You could say it had a mystical quality to it, and it also looked like a toilet. A mystical toilet, if you could call it anything. Daviez just stood there, his big round eyes taking in the scenery, his floppy ears hearing all the sounds, and his nose taking in all the smells, from the burning wood in the crafting furnaces to the salty air brought in by the breeze. "Are you Captain Daviez?" The voice boomed behind him and made him jump. Daviez turned and was face to face with a pair of kneecaps. The small pirate followed the legs to the hips and past the torso to see a big square-jawed face smiling down at him. The man was a Norn. Blonde braided hair and a big beard kept on smiling at him. "Well, are you, little one?" said the stranger with his deep and powerful voice. Daviez, still stunned by the approach, nodded in return. The mountain of a man turned and started to wave and shout, "Here he is! Found him!" The pirate tilted his head and looked past the Norn's muscular legs and saw a crowd making its way towards the two of them. In a matter of seconds, they were both engulfed by the crowd. Daviez was greeted with 1,000 smiles, pats on the back, and words of "welcome, if you need help just ask" came from every direction. Gifts were just thrown at him and he was overwhelmed by everything. He looked up at the Norn, who was still smiling at him, and asked, "How did you know my name?" The giant looked at him and responded, "WP told us of you." The name wasn't strange to him. WP was well known throughout all of Tyria as the go-to guy for the world's history. But Daviez could only chalk this up to luck or a happy coincidence. Whatever it was, the little pirate didn't mind. The Norn bent down and handed him a machine. To Daviez, it looked like one of those betting machines that he had seen in casinos. "Use it to salvage whatever you don't want. It costs some copper, but better than buying salvage kits." Ha 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 ha. He got up and started to walk away, the laughter fading as he moved. By this time, the crowd had started to scatter. Daviez checked his bag and was amazed at how full it was. The crowd had given him food, gifts, and even gold. A reception he had never had before. And now, he was all alone again. He started to walk to what he thought would be the housing district when he spotted something in the corner of his eye. He turned, and what he saw made his jaw drop. Standing a couple of meters away was a char. A big white char. A big white naked char. Besides the leather piece hiding his private parts, the feline looking being was naked. No armor, no boots, no nothing. The char waved at him and started to laugh. An enormous roar of a laugh that made everyone turn towards him. The char started towards Daviez, and the Azura didn't know if to run or to stand still. "Hello, little Azura," he said to Daviez. The look in his eyes showed that his intentions were nothing but friendly. "Need some help?" Yes. I'm looking for some housing. You know of any?" Daviez asked with nervousness in his tone. "Of course I do. Follow me," replied the char, and started to walk towards the walls of the city, and Daviez followed him a couple of paces behind. After a few steps, the char stopped and faced Daviez. Its white fur glowed in the sunlight, and he said, "Oh, I'm Cadaver Broken Bones, by the way, but my friends call me Cad."